Now, students, let's have a look at our chapter Discovering Tut. The saga continues. As I've told you earlier, this chapter is very interesting and it gives you basically in depth insight of Tutankhamun, the last ruler of powerful pharaoh dynasty in Egypt. He was a teenager when he died, and his death was a mystery. Some speculated that he was murdered. He ruled in Egypt and its empire for centuries. In 1922, his tomb was discovered by Howard Carter, a British archaeologist. After 30 years, he was taken from his resting place for a CT scan, which offers to solve the mystery of his life and death by actually creating forensic reconstruction. So, students, your chapter opens with that you know a fast, strange, unnatural wind starts blowing at at the tomb of Tutankhamun, and when King Tut's body was taken away from his grave, and this whole place is called Valley of Kings, an ancient Egyptian cemetery. The location of cemetery is also there's an image in our book where this location of this Valley of Kings is also shown, which I'll show you later on. And dark clouds moved quickly across desert all day long. Later they covered the stars, right? And on 5th January 2005 at 6 p.m., King Tut's mummy, which is the world's most famous mummy, was placed in the CT scanner to investigate basically the mystery behind the death, which had occurred 3,300 years ago. After all afternoon, this unusual line of tourists, all afternoon, tourists visited the 26 feet deep. This grave is 26 feet deep underground rock cut tomb to pay respect to the king. Many people stuffed in this small tomb looked in admiration at the murals on the walls of the chamber, took a look at the face of Tut that had been painted with gold. And while visitors they were reading guidebooks in a hushed tone, some stood silently, wondering about his untimely death. In his teenage years, they might also be wondering if the curse of Pharaoh, which leads to the descent of misfortune upon the person who disturbs him, is true. When people are there, these visitors, they're observing, they're watching, I mean, the whole scenario there, there's death in the air, and they feel they're inside a cemetery, a graveyard, and they are thinking that as they are talking in hushed tones, maybe they are still disturbing these sleeping royalty, and maybe this royalty might curse them. And they've heard about this: if you disturb these pharaohs, they all curse you, and they're wondering if what is said is true. And as the mummy is in a very bad condition. Who said this? This was said by Mr. Zai Hawass, Secretary General of Egypt, and leaned over the body to have a look. He said that mummy was in a very bad condition because of what British archaeologist Carter has done to it. And uh, he discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922. After a long research, valuable treasure of Tut had been explored earlier too, but surprisingly, they were complete. The treasure found at Tut's grave is the richest till date and has come to be known as Pharaoh's legend. And it has artifacts in gold which are eternally beautiful, and they are able to like attract your attention. Tut was buried with things of daily life use like razor made of bronze, games, linen undergarments, box of food, wine which he could use in afterlife. Actually, these people, Egyptians, they believed in resurrection, and they felt that in afterlife a person will need all these things. So they used to put all kinds of daily use things besides gold and jewelry and all that in the grave of person who dies. After months of careful recording, Carter took few months to record the treasures found in Tut's grave. Then he began investigating his three coffins, which were nested in one in another. It was like you get those surprises where you have this big box, then there will be another box, and there will be another box. It was basically a kind of a three-tier coffin in which King Tut's body was mummified. In first coffin, he found a piece of cloth with garlands of willow, olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflower, which suggested that he had been buried in the month of either March or April. Right? And when he reached the third coffin, he was in trouble. The body had hardened due to raisins, and the raisins which had been put on his body, which they had basically cemented the body, and it had stuck the body to the bottom, which was made of gold. Carter wondered what to do next because no amount of force could separate the two.